Wine Club members. If you haven't met us before, my name is Russ.
And I'm Brett.
And we are the winemakers here. I just want to say right away that we're not actors or screenwriters or directors, because we've been working on this video for about 3 hours now. And we're trying to follow a script, trying to get all the details in there. There's a lot of information. It's not going very well, so we're just gonna wing it. We're just gonna do this. So we're gonna throw a lot of information at you because you're Case Club members, you're favorite customers, and you deserve the best treatment. So we're gonna do what we can to deliver the information that you need.
Yeah. So as you all know, we're not able to host the Case Club reception at the winery here this quarter, where we'd usually pour wines for you and we can chat about them with you and you can ask questions and things like that. So instead we put together these videos and we're going to taste through the wines in your package and tell you some things about them, because the more you know about the wine that you're drinking, the more you'll appreciate it. So
on with the appreciation. Another thing I just want to point out real quick is, just as a quick reminder, here's a list of the benefits. Let me get this auto zoom in just right. Here's a list of the benefits that you get with your club membership. Just want to point that out to you real quick there, just in case you forget some of them. So if you're watching this video, you are in the sweets package. So you should have gotten a Frontenac Blanc, a You Betcha Blush, and a Raspberry. If you did not get these in your package, then call Angie or email her. She'll fix it. She's good at fixing everything.
Before we really jump into the talking about the wines or tasting them, we want to point out that it's very important that these wines be refrigerated before you drink them. So if you plan on tasting the wines with us, maybe go throw your wines in the fridge for at least an hour, or throw them in there and taste them when we're done with the video. That's up to you, but they need to be refrigerated.
I like how you said when we're done with the video. Is that an indicator that this video is going to be an hour long? I don't know. Depends on how much we have to say, I guess. So, first off, we're going to taste these in order of their sweetness. Anytime we do wine tasting, I always start with the drier wine and then go to the sweeter wine. In this case, the Frontenac Blanc is the least sweet of the three. You Betcha Blush is going to be middle of the road. Raspberry is going to be the sweetest wine in your package. So, Frontenac Blanc, this one right here. What the heck is Frontenac Blanc? What does that mean and where did it come from? So, real quick, the name Frontenac maybe sounds familiar because there's a small town in southern Minnesota named Frontenac, and the University of Minnesota developed a grape and they named it Frontenac. And this grape is a red grape that they developed. But over time, after sitting out in the vineyards for a few years, there was a mutation. Don't get freaked out about mutations. It's not like X-Men or something like that. It's just where, when exposed to certain kinds of elements, a grapevine will change. Some of those changes are really subtle, where you don't notice a difference at all, and they're imperceptible. Other times it makes more visual changes, like in this case, where the mutation happened to drop the pigments in grapes, therefore leaving the grapes an orangish gray color. And we would call that gris. So then in this case, it would be Frontenac Gris. And when that happened, it was only on half of the vine. That's why I drew this picture like this. These are the red grapes, and then this was the mutated side. So somewhere in this area, the vine had mutated, or that change had occurred, and it spread through that side of the vine, therefore changing all of these grapes to Gris grapes. Then after a couple of years of these Gris plants, anyway, we propagate it. So you cut these sticks off, propagate them, and then you get a whole bunch more vines exactly like this, until you plant a couple vineyards of those again. A couple of years go by. Now these Frontenac Gris grapes mutate again. Another vine produces a Blanc grape cluster where there's no pigmentation at all. And so even though these all started just like this one, it changes them enough that they lose their pigment, they lose their flavors change, and therefore the wine is also going to change. So you have very different flavors in the wines that these grapes would make then. So there you go. Quick history on Frontenac, Frontenac Green, Frontenac Blanc, and that's how we arrived at a Frontenac Blanc wine. So now one thing I want to show you here real quick is some label information. There's a lot of different kind of information on these labels when you grab a bottle of wine. First up is the variety, Frontenac Blanc in this case. Other wines get fancy full names like You Bet Your Blush. We'll talk about that later. But in this case, Frontenac Blanc, it's the name of the grape, name the wine after it. And then right underneath that is Minnesota. That is the designation. That's where those grapes came from, where they were grown. And then right beside that is 2019. That's the vintage that the grapes were grown in. That's very important. About 90% of a wine's quality is determined by the growing season. That means how hot it was, how cool it was, how much rain it got, how much sunshine it got, and so on and so forth. And since no two growing seasons are ever the same, you get different flavors and profiles and complexities in wines. And that's why vintage is very important. Then moving on down, we got the blend. This is 100% Frontenac. That's pretty awesome. Most wines are usually deficient in something, maybe aroma, maybe flavor, maybe they got a different kind of finish at the end, and so you add or blend a little bit of another wine to it to help improve those complexities and those characters of the wine. So it makes a more interesting, more flavorful, and just all around better wine. In this case, this stuff was just perfect, just the way it was. We didn't have to change anything. Then you have the alcohol content, 11.5% alcohol. It's pretty common for sweet white wines. And 750 milliliters, yep, that's all how much liquid is in this bottle. And then we have this little symbol right here. This stands for wind energy. So the electricity that we buy, the money for that goes towards investing into wind energy. And this wine is gluten-free. All of our wines at Carlos Creek are gluten-free. This one means that it's vegan-friendly. No animal products were used in the making of this wine. Next up that I'd like to talk about is produced and bottled by. I personally gauge this as somewhat of a quality parameter. So the more control that a winery or winemaker has over the wine, generally, the better the quality of wine is. So in this case, this was produced and bottled here, which means we brought the grapes in, we fermented them, we controlled all aspects of the winemaking, and then bottled it. Sometimes you'll just see bottled by. In cases like that, you could say that a winery bought some bulk wine. There's lots of bulk wine on the market for various reasons. You buy bulk wine, you clean it up, and you bottle it, and then on the back of the label you just put bottled by. So they didn't have anything to do with the fermenting of that wine. And it's not a bad thing. Sometimes bigger brands have wineries in different areas and have different brand names. So they make the wine at one branch of their winery, move it to another, and bottle it. So not always an indicator of quality, but just something I personally use as a gauge. And also probably the best one, or the one I like the most, is estate wines. That means that the grapes were grown on the property of the winery, controlled by the vintners of the winery, and all aspects of winemaking were controlled by the winemakers in the winery. And you usually see better quality of wine coming out of those types of bottles. So then you have our name, yep, contains sulfites, the Surgeon General's warning, and barcodes for liquor stores and restaurants and whatnot. So there you go, label information. Hope you learned something.
All right, let's try it.
Exactly. Oh, I've been waiting 3 hours for this. All right, screw cap. We use screw caps because for this type of wine, it is one of the best closures. We don't want too much oxygen getting into the wine. We want to seal it up, keep it as fresh as possible. Sometimes corks it can permeate a little bit of oxygen into the wine, which helps with bottle aging. In this case, we don't want Frontenac to bottle age. This Frontenac Blanc to bottle age. We want to just drink it fresh and fruity, and the screw cap closure is going to seal it up tight, keep it fresh and fruity. Oh, I did it wrong already. I hope you didn't see me do that. All right, first up, when you get your wine in your glass, take a sniff. Give it a good smell, get a deep inhale. That's going to give you an initial impression of the wine. Like in this case, I get the predominant fruit profile of the wine. It's kind of got like stone fruit flavors, some tropical flavors. Pretty good. Then you give it a swirl. Not too hard, not too fast. You don't want to be wearing it. You don't want to spill it all over your countertop, your lab, or your couch, or wherever you're sitting watching this. But give it a good swirl. What that does is it creates the surface area inside the glass and allows for more of that wine to evaporate. And that is going to give you a more in-depth perception of the wine and give you some more, usually will help pull more of those delicate flavors out. So you give it a good swirl, give it another sniff. And I get like an enhancement of those stone fruit qualities, and maybe pick up a little bit of lemongrass.
Yep. Citrus, maybe some pineapple.
It just brings out a little more of the complexities within that wine. So now, you gotta give the wine a little taste. First, when you do that, just take a little sip and kind of coat your mouth with that. It's going to take a little bit for your mouth to get adjusted to the alcohol and acid that's in that wine. Especially if you haven't had anything else that's acidic or alcoholic. Just a quick little rinse. Then you want to take a much larger sip and then hold that in your mouth for maybe about a minute. The longer you hold that in your mouth, usually the more flavors you can detect. It's not just going to be a quick initial impression and then gone. There's usually a lot more to wines than just the initial impression. So go ahead, take a larger sip, hold that in your mouth for about a minute, and then notice how the wine changes. Alright, I'm not going to wait a minute. It's just awkward sitting here, stare at us for a minute. I don't know. Maybe Brett's that good looking, but not me. So, it does. You kind of get like a little more minerality to it. You get stone fruits. You get a nice lingering, kind of tropical stone fruit kind of flavor that hangs out there a little bit longer.
It's really not overly sweet. It's very balanced wine.
Yep. It's got like enough acidity in there to kind of keep your mouth watering. It's a real refreshing, kind of hot summer day wine. This one's, well, as soon as we can open, this is going to be awesome sitting outside. A hot day, nice cold glass of Frontenac Blanc. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure you guys are too. Alright.
Alright.
That's Frontenac Blanc. Alright, moving on to You Betcha Blush.
Alright, so You Betcha Blush. This is kind of one of our staple wines in our Minnesota Nice series. This wine, it's just really fun. It's fruity, it's sweet. We've been making this wine for a long time, many years, and the vintage changes, so the blend changes from year to year. And this year, the blend is Frontenac, as Russ was talking about earlier with the Frontenac Blanc. It's a red grape.
Yeah, this one right here, the red one.
That we made into a rosé wine. And then we also blended it with some Brianna, which is a white grape variety. Again, nice and fruity, and just really added some complexity to the wine itself. So let's give it a try.
One thing I think I forgot to mention before when I was talking about Frontenac and the University of Minnesota, you probably saw this in 1978. That's the year that the grape was developed over there at the University of Minnesota. So, just wanted to point that out. All right, give me some.
Okay, so one of the first things you'll really notice with this one, it's got just a really vibrant, you know, gorgeous pink hue to it. That's one of my favorite things of this wine. It's just a really nice looking wine, very vibrant.
And so what makes it that way is we're especially lucky here in Minnesota. Grapes behave a little bit differently here in Minnesota than they do farther south. So Frontenac has been planted in a lot of different states all across the United States. And for us here, some of the things that we watch for when the grapes are ripening is the sugars go up, the acid goes down, and the pH goes up. But here in Minnesota, the sugars go up, the acid goes down, but the pH doesn't come up real far. It still stays pretty low. And that low pH is what gives the wine that real vibrant color. The further south you go and the further you go to warmer regions, as those grapes ripen, that pH goes up much farther. And so we're extremely lucky that we have this ability to make wines with this kind of color.
So you give it a swirl, give it a sniff. It's really, you know, really bright, very fruit forward, and almost floral. Really nice nose on this wine.
Yeah, strawberries, cherries. And I'm first spitting out names of fruits like this too, and you smell it, and you just think cherry. He said cherry. I don't smell cherry at all. You know, that's perfectly fine. Everybody smells and tastes things differently. That's kind of why everybody has different favorites. You know, like this might be my favorite wine, but maybe not Brett's, because we taste things different. We like things different. You know, and that's perfectly acceptable. Yes. We see it all the time. And somebody comes in and says, "Oh my gosh, this is the best wine I've ever had. I'm going to buy a case of it." And his twin brother, who's grew up the exact same, eating and drinking the exact same his entire life, says, "Oh my gosh, it's terrible. I hate this wine. It's the worst wine I've ever had." You know, we see that all the time. So if you're not picking up the same kind of things that we are, don't feel bad. It's perfectly normal. Nobody's going to taste or smell the exact same thing.
Completely right. It's just all up to perception and how you perceive the aromas and flavors of the wine. But I mean, I get candied strawberry. Again, it's a really nice wine. Good for sitting on the deck and wherever you are and enjoying it.
Yeah, smooth and juicy. That's no wonder this is won more gold medal awards and trophies than any other wine.
Something awesome. I'm gonna try to show you on here on the back of a lot of our bottles. I hope you can see that. This is it's a sweetness scale to kind of make things easy for you. You know, so all the way over here on dry, there's not going to be really any sugar in it. And over to sweet, that's where, you know, it's going to be really sweet. So this wine's right kind of in the middle of the road here.
So that's something when you're looking at, especially our bottles, take a peek at the back label. That'll give you an indication of the level of sweetness. And so if, as you're picking out your wines and you prefer the sweeter side, take a good look at that sweet meter. And that's, you can pick the wines that are in that same region as where you like your sweet wines. So enjoy. Alright, moving on to raspberry. So, one thing we really wanted to capture in this wine is that when you look at the label, it says raspberry. We wanted it to taste like raspberry. So, what we did was we took a wine base and we found some raspberry wine juice. So it's specific, specifically made just for winemaking. And when we blended the two together, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. When you pour this in your glass, tell you what, let's try it. It is going to smell and taste just like raspberries. It was exactly what we wanted. There's no fooling around with this one. So, this has also been one of our best-selling fruit wines that we've had over the last couple of years. And I'm sure it's due to the quality products that we use, the quality of which we make our wines. And is this? Oh yes. So You pour that in your glass before you even get it to your nose. You can smell the raspberries already.
Yeah, when you look at the bottle and it says raspberry on it, you know that's what you're gonna get, and that was the goal when we make this wine.
It's got just the right amount of tartness, to give you that thirst quenching taste. It's got the flavor and the texture. Not so much the texture. It's got all the flavor of the raspberry that you'd expect, just like throwing a handful of raspberries into your mouth, only with a little bit of kick. This raspberry wine comes in around 11% alcohol. Sweetness scale, it's maybe about, I think it is around 3.5 to 4% sugar. You betcha it's about 3.5% sugar, and the Frontenac Blanc is about 2.5% sugar. So these are all, Frontenac Blanc is maybe more on the semi-sweet wine, classified in that category. You betcha blush, kind of like right on the nail of sweet, and then raspberry, a little bit sweeter than that, still in the sweeter category. So, we thank you very much for your participation in our video. We hope you learned something. Hope you learned to found another way to appreciate the wines, and hope you picked up a little info from reading labels.
Once again, thanks for your continued loyalty, your memberships. Cheers.
And hopefully we'll see you in August.